And then that you would call like your champion model candidate and say, oh, okay, cool. Now, you're getting there because you're trying different hyperparameters, maybe different model designs, different activation functions and things like that, right? But that kind of doesn't matter, right? That's kind of like why you're Monte Carloing, because you don't know what the answer should be, right? But whatever that model ends up being, if you can go back to your stakeholder and say, hey, look, we developed this model. This is what the confusion matrix looks like. This is how many mistakes that one class is going to do. These are the mistakes in the other classes. What do you think? How do you feel about this? And they're going to tell you, right? Leo says Monte Carlo is a probabilistic model for those a bit lost. Yeah, sure. Yeah. I know that's the popular way to think about it, but honestly, Leo, I just think of it as brute forcing it, right? How do you get the right answer? You try every answer. Right? I mean, that's kind of like the dirty secret of Monte Carlo, right? Like, I think they gave it like this fancy sounding name to make you feel better, but you're just brute forcing it, right? I mean, that's all it is. You're setting up all your parameters, you're setting all your loops to try those parameters, and you're just letting it fly for the weekend, right? You let it go on a Friday afternoon, you let it fly, you come back on Monday and see what happens, right? So yeah, technically speaking, it's a probabilistic model developed, back, I think in the 70s or something, but you're just brute forcing it. Shut up. Put your academic books away. You're just brute forcing it. Rahul says maybe in some future Sunday session we can discuss Monte Carlo and other similar situations. Just a suggestion. Yeah, Rahul, that's a great suggestion. So that's been requested before, and the way it was requested before was more about saving the models and how do you identify those champion models. Because I think Rahul, you might have asked the question previously about, well, is that last model our best model? And the answer is no. The last model just tells you how you were progressing, but that's not always your last model. Sometimes it is, sometimes it's not. But you should be saving models along the way. And there's ways to do that, right? You keep a benchmark number. How did my accuracy do against my benchmark number? Is that a model I want to pull out and highlight? Like, I haven't shown that, right? Because again, it's kind of out of the scope of today. So if I were to do that, Rahul, I would do it in that way to say, okay, well, look, let's really talk about the greater scope here. And the greater scope is, how do you manage these experiments? Because another part of the Monte Carlo is, well, how are you determining those loops? Well, you're determining those loops by your hyperparameters, right? Okay, well, which hyperparameter should I be changing? And so on, right? Because that's really what you're asking, right? So yeah, not a bad idea for a Sunday session. Like I said, it's kind of been sort of requested before, but that's a much deeper conversation. So that's something I'd probably have to prepare a lot more for. I could probably wing that one because I do have my own methods that I follow, but yeah, it's such a much more complex conversation to have. But I hear you. It's in the back of my mind. It's on my list. It's on my list of 728 ideas that I want to do for you guys. So it's on my list somewhere. But yeah, I've heard that before. So thank you, Rahul. It's on the list. It's on the list. All right, guys. So yeah, like I said, guys, we see some interesting results here, but this is the best PyTorch result we've had today, right? Like 91 is the highest number we've seen for PyTorch today. Another thing that I think is also interesting, if you guys think about it, these models have all run in a reasonable amount of time. We haven't really had a model or a design that has really stressed the CPU yet, right? Like, we're not doing so bad in terms of like stressing the computer, right? So we're actually not doing so bad in terms of like the resources. I'm kind of pleased by that. Rahul says, thank you so much for explanation.